One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. We need to talk about the elephant in the room today, because that is ChatGPT, or AI, or artificial intelligence, or whatever else you want to call it. But this is the buzzword of 2023. And oh my goodness, I have seen so many questions asked about this in Facebook groups. I have seen, YouTube videos that are just going crazy, going viral about ChatGPT. How do I use this? What can I do to apply it to my podcast? And how can I use this and capitalize it? It's like striking while the iron is hot, and everybody is freaking out about it. And I wanted to share all the things that I have learned by way of Craig VanSlyke. So Craig has been on the podcast before, and he reached out to me and said, Krystal, I have been using this, and it has really been transformative for my podcasting and creation experience. And he actually uses it in a way that I hadn't heard anybody else talking about. And I have to totally admit, today I have worked with it more than I had when we originally recorded this episode. But I am in full-blown learning mode again. Even listening back to our interview, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I totally forgot that you can do that. And everything about this conversation was insightful, helpful, and is a basics introductory course of how to use AI and ChatGPT to create your podcast content. So enjoy my conversation with Craig. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Krystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, Profit Podcast listeners, we are welcoming back to the show Mr. Craig VanSlyke. So, welcome back, Craig. How are you today?
Thanks. Doing okay. Living the dream here in the woods. So thanks for
Yes.
having me back on.
Yes. And we are talking about something juicy today, something super juicy. So, the origin story of today's episode is actually, Craig's on my email list and I sent an email out and we started chatting back and forth. And he brought up the juicy topic of AI and Chat GPT. And I am just I've seen so much about it. I've gotten questions about it. And I have to just like wave the white flag and say, I don't even have access to Chat GPT. I haven't played with it. It is a brand new world to me. So, Craig, let's just get started on when did you start using it? Because I know that you said you have certain applications that we can dig into on how you've been trying it out. But when did this first like come into your world and what you're doing?
It's only been a couple of weeks,
Okay.
maybe 3 weeks, something like that. And
Okay.
I think I read about it on Reddit
Yeah.
and went and checked it out and was immediately fascinated by it. Um, I've been in the technology world. This is scary. Almost 50 years. Almost. It's coming up on 50 years and just a few more. And I haven't been this intrigued or excited about a technology since kind of the dot-com era.
Yeah.
You could see that the world was just never going to be the same.
Yeah.
And this feels that same way to me.
Yeah.
It's amazing what it's capable of.
Are
And
you always an early adopter when it comes to new technology? Or are you just kind of like, I'm going to sit back and see on certain things? Like, how has that kind of trended for you?
I tend to be a fairly early adopter, at least to play around. I got the first Kindle.
Okay. Yeah.
Things like that, a keyboard phone when that was a big deal. So yeah, I tend to, that's kind of my world. And so I tend to be fairly early on, but not like this. I mean, this is not just, oh, this is cool, I'm going to check it out. It's, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just, it's one of those blow your mind moments. Yeah, it's never going to be, the world is never going to be the same.
Yeah. So can you walk us through? So you get an account. Let's just start there.
Right.
So what you saw it on Reddit, or you started maybe seeing it pop up in a few different places. Did you just go straight to their Chat GPT website? Like, have you played around with other AI like type of technologies previously before you got intrigued about this? Or was this something that's like, oh, this looks really cool, I'm going to go like straight to this and check it out? Like how has that worked?
I've played around with similar technologies that are that have AI buried in them.
Okay.
But not anything like this. Although the first kind of chat bot I used was back in the early 90s. There was a thing called Eliza that was supposed to be this virtual psychoanalyst based on expert systems. But that's like an ox cart versus a Ferrari,
Right.
with what we're talking about here. So I had not, I'm familiar with kind of conceptually how all this stuff works at a really high level, but I never really played with it like I have in the last few weeks.
So walk me through what that looked like then. So you set up your account and
Set up your
then
account.
did you know what you wanted to play around with? Because I find that there's been a few different, because I'm thinking about, when the NFTs really started taking off and everyone was like, you just got to get in there, you got to create it, you got to make it happen, you got to do this. And people are like, well, what do you create? Like, what do you do? And they're like, it doesn't matter, just create something and you need to publish it on the blockchain. You need to do this and that. So is it kind of like that? Like, did you know that you were just going to go in and start playing around, or did you have some sort of intention behind it?
No, absolutely. Playing around with technology is one of the best ways to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually written academic articles about that, and it really is a great way to learn. So, I went in. I don't think I had to go on a waiting list, but anyway, I got my account. Wanted to start playing. One of the first things I asked it to do was to write a poem about our cat Taz, who is one of these. She's a little gray cat that just everything she does is funny. And from the first moment I saw her, she's been like that. So I described Taz and said, write a poem about Taz. And it cranked out this poem.
Uh-huh.
It was actually, I mean, I'm no poet, but, if I read it, I thought, this is a decent poem.
Yeah.
And then we were going out to dinner with a friend for his birthday with him and his wife. And they had raced, they built and raced drag racers in their younger days. So I said, hey, write me a poem for a guy who's turning 72 who used to do Top Fuel dragsters with his wife. Instant birthday present.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
started to see what it could do. So I went through dad jokes and all kinds of silly stuff before I started to get a feel for how to interact with it.
Mm.
One of the things about ChatGPT is that it is conversational. And so it's not like Google, find me websites on XYZ.
Right.
It's, okay, tell me about this. And it'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you. And then it's, well, I don't quite get this piece of it. Can you explain that some more? And then you keep refining it and you keep up. It's really like having a conversation with an eternally patient, incredibly knowledgeable friend.
Yeah.
You can keep asking it for more stuff and changing directions, and it'll keep cranking out answers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really something.
What's the turnaround time? So, like, you make a request, you have all your details, you hit submit, you hit enter, you like actually send off what you're asking for. How fast is it that it turns around and has something, a deliverable to share with you?
So 6 weeks later, you get a letter in the mail. No, it seemed like that at first. No, it's really kind of neat. It kind of types it out.
Mm-hmm.
So the old terminals that you saw in like the War Games movie and that kind of thing, where it would
Yeah.
type out letter by letter. It's faster than that, but you can watch. It doesn't just appear like a
Oh,
Google search would,
okay.
and it varies on how much load the system has on it and that sort of thing. Sometimes it'll hang up and just do nothing for a while. Sometimes it'll just stop completely and you have to regenerate the response. But it's not instantaneous, but in a matter of 15, 20 seconds,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
which is
That's,
mind-boggling. But
yes. I was going to say, yeah. I mean, so if you were to go back in time to the early 90s when people were just starting to talk about this thing called the internet and how all that was going to work, and somebody told you, in a few years you're going to have the ability to ask this thing anything, or you have it generate a poem about your cat Taz in a matter of like seconds, like what does that look like? Like, I mean, on the spectrum of technology, because I can look at podcasting, for example, and see the exponential growth that has happened in just the 5 years that I've been in the industry and looking at it. So if you were to kind of put this on like a time frame, do you feel like we've just made like a huge jump that's going to lead to exponential jumps in the future? I guess I'm putting you on the spot to make a prediction.
so yeah,
Craig.
it will. So technology does grow exponentially,
Mm-hmm.
and it has for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's partially because information technology tools can help build the next generation of information technology tools.
Right.
And so that kind of really rapid growth is built in. But what I've noticed over the years is I keep hearing things that computers won't ever be able to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then 5 years later, 10 years later, there you go.
Yeah.
It was never going to beat a grandmaster at chess, was never going to accurately translate language. Here we are.
Yeah.
Um, I, I don't know where this is going to lead, though.
Mm-hmm.
It could go a lot of different directions. But what I do know is that in the long run, this is the worst it will ever be.
Yeah.
It won't be a smooth. I'm it's a podcast and I'm making a little diagram with my finger, but it won't be this smooth arc. It'll have fits and starts,
Yeah.
but it's just going to get better and more powerful.
Yeah. And it's really interesting too to think about, especially when you think about first iterations, because I'm a beta tester on a lot of different software. And if I look back to the genesis of whenever I onboarded with something, 2 or 3 years ago, and then the product that's out in the world today, it's like, oh my gosh, it's that like, if you only knew what we had to deal with back in the day, whenever we first started using this, like, and that's how I feel about podcasting. I was just creating something, recently where I said, I still had to explain to people 5 years ago what a podcast was. Like most people were like, like you do what? It's on your phone already. It's already installed. I can just open an app and make it happen. So this is like circling back to the exponential growth and how this technology can help us, can create it's just so many more creative things that we're not even thinking about the application of them today. But I want to really bring this home for people listening right now. Cause I mean, you've listened to this podcast, that there's podcasters, YouTubers, bloggers, people that are just creating content on lots of different platforms and channels. Is there something specific that you see ChatGPT or other AI that will be coming out to solve problems for them specifically?
I do. But where we are right now is incredibly useful.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example that I did just a little while ago. So my podcast focuses on human flourishing. How do you live an excellent life? And so there's a concept called memento mori, which is remember that you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you use that to try to figure out how you're going to live well and that sort of thing. And there's another concept called phronesis, which is practical wisdom. Don't worry, I always explain terms. So, well, I wanted to put those two together. Now, what I could have done is, thought about it and written some stuff up and read some articles and done this and done that because I was familiar with both concepts already. I said, hey, ChatGPT, put these two things together and write a script for a podcast and describe the podcast. And it spit out, what was a credible script. Now, not one that I would have used.
Right.
Because it's not my voice. And it didn't get exactly what I wanted to get at. But then I could say, okay, that's great. Expand on this point.
Yeah.
Or now bring in this idea. And within a matter of 15 minutes, I had 2,000 words.
Wow.
And now I can take that and use it to do a script or an outline for a podcast episode that's in my voice. And that would have taken me 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
To do otherwise.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say is the planning process, which, and, when I talk about this so much in all of my content, the planning piece is really the place where I encourage everybody to spend more time because that cuts down on the post-production. If you're editing and doing all this, like the more you can plan and really flesh out the ideas or the point that you're trying to make in your content, one, it's clear to your audience what it's about. But two, if you have specific calls to action, everything kind of leads up to that. And it's very clear what the overall message is. So
Right.
I love the idea of speeding up that initial, sitting there with a whiteboard, the blank Google Doc with the cursor just blinking at
Yeah.
you. And you're just like, what am I supposed to talk about? Because that's the question I get all the time. It's like, I don't know what to talk about next week. Or, these are these are the things that have performed well, but I don't know what to talk about this next time. So I love the idea that you could just pop in your most popular topics that you have and say, come up with a new concept. Like, how can I tie all these together? That sounds awesome.
Well, and it's really subtle in one way.
Mm-hmm.
So what it helped me do is recognize, I'm trying to think how to say this, recognize what wasn't clear. Because, we write on these things that we've been thinking about a long time and you
Right.
crank through them and there's something that's entirely clear to you that you never mention.
Mm-hmm.
And people are listening going, how do we get from A to X?
Yeah.
Where's all this stuff in between? Well, when it's spitting back the script at you, you can kind of say, oh, wait a second. I wouldn't have thought about putting this piece in. Or wait, there's a hole here where we need more detail. And it's, you've got a solo podcast. My personal podcast is solo. It's kind of a lonely thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, imagine having this always there assistant that you can just bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Like I put out I said, what do you think about this title for this episode? And it basically slapped me in the back of the head and said, what are you thinking? That's a terrible title. That's going to turn people off because of this, this, and this. And it was right.
Yeah.
But if you're working by yourself, and I know a lot of your audience is,
Mm-hmm.
they're solopreneurs and that kind of thing. Here you go. $20 a month. Once you can get in, $20 a month, and you've got this assistant. And it can do even more than that. You can ask it for, give me some topic ideas, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You can ask it to help you refine topic ideas. I was working on an academic paper and I had a sentence I just didn't like, and I rewrote it and couldn't get it there. I said, make this more concise without losing the meaning. Popped it in. There it goes.
Wow.
All kinds of things like that it's capable of doing. And I'm not an expert. I've only been using this a few weeks. And so I think that its capabilities are just phenomenal.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Well, I love the framing of it being an assistant. It's almost like but it's more than just, so I won't say their names because then they will talk back to me and we don't need that right now. But I have one on my watch, right? I have one on my Apple Watch that I can talk to. I have the other one from Amazon in my kitchen. I mean, it's a constant, like, hey, I am out of milk. And I add it to my shopping list, like right there. Like I literally don't keep handwritten grocery lists anymore. I don't even do them on my phone where I write them out. I literally say, hey, your name, then, add milk to my shopping list, and it's there. Like next time I go to shop, like it's literally there on my phone. Or if I have to remember, oh, the kids have basketball practice today, I will literally push the button on my watch and say, hey, remind me at 4:30 p.m. that we have basketball practice at 5 and we need to leave. I do this every single day already, Craig. So to frame it in a way that it's not a task master necessarily. I mean, I'm sure that you could use it that way, but it's actually someone of value. That's how I would relate this to. It's not just an executive assistant that you could task with all these errands to just go do for you, but someone that is a sounding board to go back and forth to pitch and catch literal ideas that can help you in your content and in your business. I think that's a fantastic way. Like you just blew my mind in thinking about it that way, because like I said, I don't have access to it right now. I've played around with, Canva recently released a feature that's called Magic Write. So anybody that's using Canva and you have a pro account, then you have access to do it. And it's similar, but I do think it's a very lo-fi version of what ChatGPT is capable of. But just playing around with that, I'm just like, this is so cool. but I haven't had the bandwidth to play with it as much. So this is the real reason why I would love, like, whenever you were like, let's talk about it. I'm like, yes, please, because people are asking me. And I'm like, I don't even have access. I was waitlisted. Not cool, Craig. Like, you're a VIP. You've had access to it and you've got to play with it. So I'm jealous. I'll just throw it out there. But I love learning from you and all the different ways that you've been able to use it.
Yeah, it's really something. I will give a couple of caveats though.
Yep.
It will make stuff up.
Okay. Yeah.
I was playing around with it early on, and it gave me a citation for an academic journal article with me as first author.
Oh, nice.
Not only did I not write the article didn't exist.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't that it just messed up the authors. I mean, it just completely made up the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to fact check it, which, depending upon the topic, could negate a lot of the benefit. But usually, kind of whether or not it's right. But it will get things wrong. The other big problem I see is it is a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend an entire day just cranking through stuff. And so I'm going to have to start setting limits for myself. I think I'm going to put it on my calendar.
Yeah.
Time block it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Parental control.
Yes,
kind of a thing
for yourself.
ChatGPT.
Yes.
Maybe I should prompt it. What is the best way to,
how can I limit my time with you?
Yeah. No, don't leave. Please don't leave.
Don't
Yeah. So it's the other thing. It's not really a caveat, but it does take practice. So because it's conversational, the first prompt often won't get you exactly what you need, but it will. When you get access, ask it how to write good prompts, and it'll tell you. So treat it as a real conversation, a back and forth to help you develop ideas, and it will be one of the most useful tools you can ever use.
Yeah. So from the perspective of, because I just saw this and I think it was on LinkedIn, it was somewhere about Microsoft's investment in it, right? Are you familiar with this? That they spent.
But I'm waitlisted for Bing, so
okay.
I don't feel so bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, for anybody that's listening, we'll link to, I know that I saw it, I think it was on LinkedIn and an Apple News article about they were making like a $10 billion investment in ChatGPT. And so in looking at that, I know that people in the Google world is like they kicked the hornet's nest basically. And things are just kind of like, I don't want to say uncertain, right? Because things are very stable as of today, but I do think of it as a shakeup. I think back to the different phone carriers. There's been a lot of phone wars over the years. And the only reason why I speak to that one specifically is because my mom worked in mobile phone sales. She was selling bag phones. She was selling all kinds of stuff, like whenever I was growing up. And so I'm familiar with the different, just slowly over time, how these smaller companies were getting absorbed and just kept getting gobbled up, where there's only a few mobile phone carriers today,
Right.
like we only know a few. And so I'm curious if, do you think that there's going to continue to be like competing ones pop up that are kind of like the lo-fi version of this? Or do you think that this is the one that you're going to stick with because it's like a tried and true one? Because I'm just throwing that out there for people that are listening. They're like, well, I'm still on the wait list and I don't know how much longer it's going to take. Should I go try to find something that's similar to this, or should I just wait and hang on to the hope that I'll get access to it soon?
Well, I'd go look around.
Yeah.
I know there's some other similar kinds of technologies. For me, when competitors come out, I'll try them, just to see. But there's a real difference here, because this is a tool that can be used to build other tools.
Yeah.
And so you will see, kind of wrappers around these kinds of technologies, where you don't even know what's going on behind under the hood, so to speak.
Right.
And that's what Microsoft is doing with Bing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you brought up Bing, because that shows you the disruptive power of these technologies.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you heard anybody say, "Ooh, I'm going to start using Bing"?
Yeah.
I mean, it was always, well, kind of this joke. I'm going to go laugh at Bing. But
Yeah.
now it's like, give me access to, your Bing.
Yes.
Please, I'll give you my firstborn. Not my cat, but firstborn maybe.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, so that's a joke. But it just tells you kind of what the transformative power is of these technologies. And if you want to see how it's going to play out, I would go back and look at what happened during the .com era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are a lot of parallels. Some things will pop up and look like they're going to be the greatest thing ever, and then they'll just implode.
Yeah.
And others like Google will come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
It is. It's so interesting. And I love first of all, I just love being in the digital space. Like I didn't realize how much of a, I guess, undercover tech nerd that I was until I started doing all the things that I'm doing today. And I'm like, oh, I really love technology. Like I love understanding the high level, like just enough to be dangerous, because that's where I feel comfortable. Like I'm not a developer by trade. I don't have the background in IT that would, really put me in a position to speak on like a lot of these topics very confidently in a way. Like you set me down on stage and you're like, Krystal, talk about this. I'd be like, ChatGPT, tell me what to say behind the scenes because I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's just been something that I'm fascinated with. So I just love hearing about this topic. I think that we're going to continue to have a lot more questions about it and just keep exploring. But I want to go back to someone that's listening right now and they're thinking, okay, I'm just getting started. I don't even have a podcast. I'm looking like this is the year that I said I was going to get going with my content. Is there one specific way that you would recommend them start using it so they don't go down a rabbit hole of just trying things and playing with it? Like, is there any kind of, I guess, step-by-step that you would give them to go like get in and get out and not waste, hours and hours or days and days, like going down a rabbit hole?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some benefit to going down a rabbit hole early on, as long as you kind of set some guardrails. I'm going to spend an hour 3 times a week playing with it, that kind of thing. But what you do there is you test its capabilities and its limits.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of gradually transition from kind of silly stuff like poems about cats to more serious things. And then think about how you would use a really great research assistant that can help you refine ideas.
Yeah.
If you had an hour with such a person, how would you use it? And then use it that way. Because I think that's the real benefit. It'll give you advice on SEO and, how do you engage audiences and that kind of thing. But, you can get that by listening to the Profit podcast or, whatever it might be. That's out there. But this interactive, I mean, compare somebody that's listening to your podcast to somebody that you're coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2 different worlds.
Very. Yeah.
And so treat it more like that coach, but with some limitations is what I would do. And then figure out what your pain points are. Once you get into the space, you start creating your content, that sort of thing. What is it that's really causing you a lot of aggravation?
Yeah.
And then see if ChatGPT or some similar technology can help you with that. You were just talking about copywriting.
Mm-hmm.
See if it can help you with copywriting.
Yeah.
Here's a description. Give me a better description.
Yeah.
Give me one that's more engaging. Give me one that's going to be more thought-provoking or whatever it might be. If you're a great copywriter, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So what's your pain point? And then see, it's not going to help you automate scheduling interviews.
Right.
I mean, maybe it would. I don't think so, but maybe. So don't, just put that aside. But when you see something, because now you understand the capabilities, because you played around with it, find your pain point start using it. I mean, that's exactly what I did.
Oh, it's fantastic advice because I mean, I look at all the different tools, I'm just a big fan of going back and looking at my expenses on a pretty regular basis. And I go back and I see where am I spending a bulk of my operating expenses? And it's not contractors, y'all. It is apps. It's software that does exactly what Craig said, it's scheduling. I use Calendly to schedule my interviews. I used to go back and forth with people. And then I said, you know what? This is crazy. There's got to be something that's simpler. And that's when I outsourced that. And so I love the idea of you're not outsourcing your creativity, right? If you're using it for copywriting or to help you write blog posts, what you're doing is you're hiring that assistant that's a little bit more qualified than someone that's just going to write down everything you say. You have a notes app for that. You have a Google Doc for that. But if you want someone that's going to help you say, oh, you know what, that idea is great, but this one, like try this on for size, or let's go with these keywords instead and see how that feels for you and your audience. But I love the point that you made earlier about fact checking and having like just the basic understanding that just like anything else on the internet, you got to take it at face value,
Right. Yeah.
Like it's like a Wikipedia page. I love it. There's podcasts I listen to where they will hilariously say, oh, this is what your Wikipedia page says. And that person's like, I don't have 7 children. Like I have 0 kids. And like, this is like, what are you talking? I didn't grow up in Arizona. I grew up in New York, And so it's like, it's so funny to me, like all the lies that are on the internet that people just take at face value. So I love that you threw that out as a disclaimer too.
Well, and the one last disclaimer I want to reiterate is at the end of the day, it's your content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're not only responsible for, the facts and that sort of thing, but you've got to make it your content. We all develop a distinct voice, and don't get lazy and let these tools just crank out content for you, because that's going to dilute what you're trying to do in the long run.
Yeah. And I think that's so good because I imagine someone that is using it, because there will be a ton of people come on the content creation scene and it's all AI generated. Maybe they're just reading the script, but at the end of the day, they won't be able to hold their own on an interview, or they won't be able to go and speak with authority on that same topic on stage or just in another audience spotlight. So I love the fact that you threw that out there, like make it your own. Like I couldn't agree more, but what a strong message to really send out there. And I just keep going back to what you were talking about, like in the planning phase, like using it as a creative tool to help you develop ideas, make them stronger, or just think of something that, who knows what it's going to come up with, like something that is just you've never even thought of or you hadn't considered including. But yeah, I think this is just all fantastic. I'm excited. I'm jealous, Craig. Like I said, I will absolutely have to let you know whenever I get access to it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
I'm like, I want to see it. I want to like try it out and like, it's super cool. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share about AI or technology or any other things that you've stumbled on in your content creation journey?
Just remember, technology is a tool.
Yeah.
It's really easy to be a gearhead, and always chasing the next coolest app. And, you get 20 emails a day about this app or that app. Remember, they're tools. They're just tools at the end of the day. And if a tool helps you, great. If it doesn't, get a different tool.
Yeah. Do you have any other favorite tools that you have? Like, do you have like a top 3 that you're like, oh, I couldn't operate without them?
Well, there's one this is kind of out there. It's called Obsidian.md.
Okay.
And it's kind of this personal knowledge management tool, kind of like an Evernote, but different.
Okay.
And you can throw everything in there. You can link things to each other. I keep my daily note. So every day I've got a note and my to-do list that I roll over from one day to the next. And you can do some amazing stuff. You can program in it, that kind of thing. I don't do all of that, but it's like this repository.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I can put stuff and the search is good enough to where I can find it again. It's not it can do some formatting, but you don't get bogged down in making it look pretty and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. So
Yeah.
that's the one I've really been using a lot lately. That's made a big difference for me. And
That's awesome.
on the podcasting side, Descripts, Descript, however they pronounce it, their studio sound. I edit in Hindenburg, but we did a podcast for my university this morning, and there was some kind of electromagnetic hum on the guest side, and I'm not an editor, so I put it in studio sound. Hum's gone,
Yeah. That's
echo's gone.
awesome.
Yeah, that's a subscription that's worth having.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It's usually somebody's fan or it's like something like you say, okay, like turn off any fans or anything that's in your room if you have it on. I swear it's like most of the time that's what it is. And then it's funny because I'll think about what are noises that I'll catch in my solo episodes that I didn't think about. And mine is usually my dryer. So
Oh yeah,
just on the other side of my wall, because I'll record those, sometimes on a Friday or like on the weekends. And I usually throw in a load of laundry and I just totally forget that it's there. And then I'll go back and listen to it. And I'm like, oh, like, thank God I love my Rode Procaster. Like, this is the mic that I use, but then I also use Hindenburg to edit. And then I have Magic Mastering on
oh yeah.
Buzzsprout that it runs through. But sometimes it'll get, like, it's bad. Like, Craig, it's just really bad sometimes. So I'll run it through Auphonic first, and then I'll run it through Buzzsprout. It's like, we're so like, oh yeah.
Just
Technology is awesome.
Don't record on tennis shoe laundry day. That's the biggest tip,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Or when I have like a house full of children that are screaming that I'm just like, God, because you can't edit that out. It just looks like somebody's being attacked. Like in the background. I'm like, guys, like stop screaming. I'm texting them. Quit. What are y'all doing? Oh my gosh. But that's just season of life that I'm in right now.
The way it goes,
Yes.
It's what makes life.
Exactly. Well, Craig, this is so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with ChatGPT and just all these other cool tools that are coming out. Can you remind everybody about your podcast and where they can find more about you?
So a podcast is called Live Well and Flourish. It's about living an excellent life, and it's at livewellandflourish.com.
Awesome. And what about your other podcast? Are we
I have
promoting that one?
Kind of. I have a podcast called Cyberways through Louisiana Tech University, which is where I work. And we translate academic cybersecurity research into something that practitioners can use.
That's so cool.
And just Google Cyberways Louisiana Tech because it's got a long URL I can't remember. So
yeah,
we got to work on that.
We got to work on the marketing for that one, but we'll get it. We'll get it there. Right. Well, thank you so much, Craig. This was so awesome. It's always lovely to speak to you, and I appreciate just everything that you shared with us today.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate being on.
I told you it was going to be a great episode. This was something that has been requested. People have been asking me, like, what are your insights? What are your take? And I told you earlier that this episode was recorded before I really got into like the nitty gritty of using ChatGPT on a regular basis. Like the new Bing hadn't even really been released whenever we recorded this episode. And now I've been using it on a more regular basis. And I see so much potential specifically for this audience for helping you write scripts, helping you create better outlines for your content, and just generally becoming a better writer. This is the thing that I see, at least for me personally. Copywriting is one of those things that I have gotten better over the years, but having the suggestions of, this is what I'm trying to say, help me say it in a more concise way, or I want to talk to this specific audience, give me prompts for this, like using it more like an assistant in like a creative person that can pitch and catch ideas with you. That's how I see it working so well for podcasters and creators in general, is having that sounding board to go back and forth. And then sure, you're going to have some great ideas. And then you're also going to have some really terrible ones. And then maybe you'll see ideas that will spark other ideas. But I think that this is a tool that we should all learn how to use because unlike other trends that have come and gone in the online space, I think that this one is here to stay. And at the very least, we should learn how to use it to help us become better creators. But that's all I have for you today. Such a great episode. Again, thank you so much, Craig, for coming on and sharing all of your great insights. Make sure that you are following or subscribed to the podcast wherever you are listening. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Krystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Krystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.